Hello and welcome to the latest in the series of Northwest Employers podcasts. I'm Sharon, Senior Executive Director, and in today's session we're going to be talking about how to navigate times of transition. We're doing that with confidence. So I'm delighted to welcome Kim Gowland, who's one of our associates. And Kim, we've been working together quite a while, haven't we? And it's lovely to have you with us today. And Kim's a leadership and transition coach and has worked with lots of different leaders from across the sector, helping them to work through times of transition with confidence. So it's something, given, I think, all of the changes that are happening in the public sector right now, a really important topic, Kim. So I'm delighted to have you here with us today to talk about some of your experiences and think about how that can support our leaders as they go through lots of times of uncertainty. I think that's a bit of a constant for us. So I guess to kick us off this morning, could you tell us a little bit more about how you would define transition? So when we're talking about, transition with confidence, what does transition mean to you?
Yeah, hi Sharon. It's lovely to be here and see you again. And thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this subject, which is kind of a subject that's really close to my heart, because it's one thing we don't really learn, like what is transition and what is the difference between change and transition, because that's really vital to the way we think about it. So if we kind of think about change is the thing that's happening outside. So it might be a promotion, it might be a career change, it might be a restructure, a redesign, it might be bereavement, it might be divorce, it might be retirement, anything like that. So that's the thing, that's the external situation. And transition is really about the process of psychological change that we go through when we face changes. So it's about the internal process. And I can tell you a little bit about that if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So it's based on the work of a really interesting writer called William Bridges. And what he talks about is transition is a 3-stage process. It starts with an ending. So in any transition, when we're facing a change, there are things that we need to let go of. There are old identities, old ways of approaching things, old ways of being and thinking that we need to kind of let go of and put down, that we've lost. And then there's this middle bit called the neutral zone. And this is the bit where we just don't really know. We're a bit disconnected, we're confused, we're uncertain, we're not really sure of kind of who we are and what's happening. And then finally we get to the new beginning, which is where we kind of emerge with kind of new knowledge and we're more confident and we have embraced in a way the new identity that we need for the next stage of our career, our life, etc. And this is kind of when we're kind of coaching people, when we're thinking about what individuals need in these times of uncertainty, this is the process that they need support with. Because a lot of people are not really aware of the difference between those two things.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Kim. I think I remember somebody describing this to me once as if somebody's at the circus, because they're a circus performer, and it's not the trapeze because that's the wire, isn't it? But kind of that whole letting go. So you're here, you swing across, and you've got to let go and catch that. And I guess at the moment, for lots of leaders, they don't know what that is, what they're grabbing hold of, because things are quite uncertain. And I think that's part of it, isn't it? So it's like you hold on to what you know. There's a bit in the middle where you think, oh, I've got to go for this. But actually, what is it that I'm grabbing hold of? And that whole thing, as you say, that psychological safety and thinking about where you are in that is really key, isn't it? And I suppose from that leadership perspective, or thinking about it, from that personal level, what kind of challenges do you think people face then on that personal level during that transition phase? Yeah,
I think going through times of transition are actually incredibly challenging for people, and I don't always recognise they're going through transition. So maybe I could illustrate it by just talking about a situation and talk through the challenges that person might face.
Yeah, that'd help to bring
it to life a bit. So imagine you're working in one local authority and you've been kind of a senior manager, maybe a deputy director, and you get the promotion that you've always dreamt of in another local authority, and you start that job with all that kind of enthusiasm, and then you suddenly realise that it's not as easy as you think. You've lost your sense of connection to the people that you work with, your sense of belonging in a community, maybe your sense of identity of who you are and who you're connected with. You're in a new culture and you just don't understand the new culture. Maybe you're feeling a real sense of imposter syndrome or lack of confidence. You've lost that sense of connection. You don't recognise yourself almost in that new role. You're also dealing with so many new challenges, so all those uncertainties and those kind of things. So you're in this new system. So you're going through the transition, the change of the job, but you've almost lost your sense of security and identity being in the new one. So those challenges are around lack of confidence, lack of sense of self, lack of sense of belonging, perhaps. Maybe some sense of overwhelm when you're dealing with not only your own place and who you are in this new job and this new role and this new place with these new people, but how do you get to grips with all the new challenges that some people suddenly expect you to be dealing with, and you're at the top now, and you're lonely at the top, and who do you talk to? So how do you learn to use the experience of the previous career stage and navigate the uncertainty and emerge as the new person? And I think that's where the challenges and also the joy in a way is recognizing that transition is a journey. So you're not going to arrive on day one as this new leader.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel your place, and you're not going to necessarily understand how you can really live up to your potential, because that's all the stuff that you need to learn, but also you're having to unlearn stuff that worked previously but doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and I think what you just described there, I'm sure lots of people listening to this will perhaps identify with. As you say, you get a new job and it's all exciting. And actually, I know in a lot of my coaching practice, and I recognise it in myself, or I have recognised it in myself at times, we hear a lot about imposter syndrome, don't we? And it's where people think, you're going into that new job and you think, actually, I'm at the top of my game, but it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. Yeah. And people sometimes can have that wobble. And I think it's recognising that, like you're saying, it's recognising it is a journey. So it might be a blip, but there's a way out of it, isn't there?
I think imposter syndrome, I'd say, and lack of confidence is probably one of the most popular themes that I see in my coaching.
Yeah.
Even at the highest level, they say that at any one point, 70% of the people suffer from imposter syndrome. The people who look like they're the most capable people, sometimes we just have to fake it to make it, don't we? And I think understanding that is normal. I think understanding the transition journey can really help with that confidence, because it's like, well, this is natural. This is a natural thing that I'm going through, which is I'm not arriving on day one as this supremely confident leader. I'm in a kind of learning journey. I always talk about kind of being curious, and it's about kind of absorbing the information, seeing what's emerging in a way, and working out what is it you need in order to help you navigate this period, which, people just expect you at the top of your game to go, well, then I know you know what you're doing, so you don't need any support. You should just be able to just do it. But that sense of belonging and that sense of place and that sense of identity is so powerful that people do really often need support through, or just need to understand that what I'm feeling is quite normal.
Yeah, and I think if we look at the context now, particularly for our members in local government, so we've got the context of devolution, local government reorganisation, so we are going to see even more change in the imminently really, but over the next couple of years I think we're going to see some significant change in local government. So thinking about that, we've talked about it I suppose from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a lot of people both in leadership roles and other roles that will all be going through all of the this change together, but probably at different levels and different stages depending on what that change means for them. So it'd be helpful to explore some of that really around, yes, from the personal perspective, but from a leadership place, how can leaders recognise that and support that in other people, so in their teams when they're going through it themselves, but then it's everybody around them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because I think one of the things for me that it's really important for leaders to have is kind of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And also this understanding of change and transition is actually really helpful for that, because we're not just coming into structures and, hierarchies and organisations. It's about understanding that, change and transition is happening to people. And what does a good leader need? A good leader needs, an understanding, perhaps an emerging understanding of vision and purpose and all of that. But how do you bring people along with you? How do you support people who are going through massive changes? And, we're all going through transitions all of our lives, not just professional, but personal as well. And as you say, never more so. And we learned that in the pandemic, didn't we? It was a seismic change and people, some people, they'd say that there's a time pre-COVID and post-COVID, nothing was ever quite the same. But I feel like, transition is about understanding yourself as an individual going through this, but also your place in the organisational system and your place in the external system. Because if there's anything that's more important than understanding what you can contribute in the system, is people that work in public sector are, kind of service orientated. They're there they want to make a difference. So what's all this change and transition that's happening outside of the organisation? What's the difference that the leader wants to make out there? What's the difference that the leader wants to make to their people?
Yeah.
And in their organisation, what's the difference that they're going through, the changes they're going through as a person? So all of those bring in things like, as I said, emotional intelligence, a sense of curiosity and learning. I think, understanding that transition is not an overnight process. So things like patience, adaptability, also, resourcing oneself. I think that sense of, if you're in transition yourself, how do you look after yourself? How do you look after your own well-being so that you can be conscious of others' well-being? Because we know as well that in local authorities, public sector, there are not only things like redesigns and where people are moving out of the system and needing to go to other departments and things like that, but also, people kind of losing their jobs, or people, I think there's lots of things that, people are struggling sometimes. So it's understanding the whole picture, I think.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, there's a danger that we focus, and we have to focus on the structure and the infrastructure and, it's the organisation design, but not forget the people, because that's, you've got to take people with you, haven't you? And I think that's a key leadership role, and recognising that personal element, the human element, and it won't happen overnight. So some people will be there straight away, others it will take longer, and it's keep checking in. So I suppose, and I think that point you make about looking after yourself and your own resourcefulness is really key.
Yeah, I think, even acknowledging that people are going through a time of transition, because it's often not acknowledged, and actually not just the people as individuals, but the organisation going through the transition. So if you imagine that an organisation, I'm really interested in kind of systemic stuff. So if we imagine an organisation as almost like a planetary system, everyone's moving about. Some people have left and some people are, maybe being demoted, and people are being promoted. And I think if we acknowledge that stuff is going on, rather than kind of go, well, we just have to get on with it. It has to be acknowledged in order for people to move forward. Because it might be that not only does the individual need to kind of let go of stuff, the organisational culture does as well.
Yeah.
You could use that model, the ending, the neutral zone and the new beginning, to think about, where's the organisation going? What is no longer useful to us as an organisation? What do we need to navigate this time of uncertainty? And how do we create structures for the next new beginning?
Yeah, and I think because some of that, people listening to this might think, oh, this is all a bit doom and gloom, because it's really difficult, isn't it? And I think you're right, is calling it out and saying this is challenging. But actually, those new beginnings as well are equally as important, aren't they? Because around, going back to the point you made before, Kim, about sharing that vision, setting the vision out. Actually, the whole purpose of transitions, there should be something positive that comes, otherwise why are we doing it?
Yeah.
So, but thinking about painting that picture, those opportunities for people, new skills, and actually, I think as a leader, in terms of navigating that, you've got to, yes, look after what was there, manage people through this middle bit, but also paint that picture of what it could look like or what we want it to be like, and bring people in to be a part of that. So it's, it is challenging, but it's not losing sight of why we're doing it and what is that vision. But I think still being realistic around where people are and what they need. And I suppose just reflecting on that then, and some of the skills, you've mentioned some of these. So I think from a leadership perspective, emotional intelligence, empathy. Are there any other skills or anything that you think leaders need to have in the toolkit in terms of managing through transition and doing that with confidence?
Yeah, I think that I like the fact you used the word toolkit, because I use the word toolbox, in my kind of work as a coach. And I think they're all kind of definitely skills that I see kind of leaders want to develop, because obviously coaching itself is like an outcomes, goal-focused process. But, building confidence is something that, comes with areas that people can really work on, like building authority, building personal influence, building relationships. All of those things are things that can be really thought through in order for leaders to develop that in a way that's authentic to them. I think often when you're in times of transition, it's really hard to see the wood for the trees. So dealing with a sense of overwhelm, how do you learn to kind of see what's important?
Yeah.
So there's a model I use a lot, it's called Big Rocks, which is Stephen Covey's Big Rocks, which is how do we kind of pull out in this sense of swirling change what's really important for me to do as a leader, what's really important for us to do as an organisation, what's really important for the impact that we want to make. So all of those, I think absolutely physically, consciously thinking about well-being, thinking about what we need in order to work at our best, because obviously one of the things that we see with a lot of leaders, especially in times that are choppy, is a lot of overwork, inability to switch off. You're not going to really be working at your best, because And, what I see a lot of as well is leaders wanting to learn to think more strategically. Because even at the higher levels, we can get into a little hamster wheel of just ticking off the to-do list. And, at leadership level, sometimes you have to consciously put that down, especially if we're being promoted from one level to another. And I said, well, how do I stop the doing a bit more and put a bit more time into the thinking and planning and the stuff that I need for the next stage?
And that's really important, isn't it? And I recognise that, because it is easy to kind of get dragged into the weeds, isn't it? And you have to keep yourself here. And I guess that's where coaching can come in. And like I say, you're a really experienced coach that works with lots of different people. And for those people that perhaps haven't experienced coaching, I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of an insight into how that works. So if there is somebody that's thinking, I might, this quite interested in this. I don't know really what coaching is about. How would you describe a coaching conversation, or how it can help people?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'd say that a coaching conversation is part of a coaching process. So, someone will book a set of coaching sessions, and it's very much about what is it they want to achieve. So it's kind of goals orientated, if you like. But the coaching session itself is what I think best described as a thinking partnership, a kind of equal thinking partnership between coach and client, leader. And it's recognizing that the leader is the expert in themselves. The coach is the expert in helping that person to do their best thinking and find the solutions that are right for them, and thinking through what insights are going to be useful, what patterns may be repeating that aren't working now. But they're very much based on what is it that they need to work out in order to get from where they are now to where they ideally want to be. So what I would say is, in a little nutshell, in a coaching session, the first question is, what do you want to think about today? And at the end of the session is, what have you learned about yourself today? What insights have come out today? And what will you do? What are your intentions as a result of today? So coaching is a bit of a mix of support to think, but also accountability, and also a safe space, especially in leadership. Sometimes people feel like they haven't got anyone that they can share how they're feeling. They're not supposed to show up and go, I'm not feeling very confident about this. So be able to think through that. And you mentioned the toolkit, the toolbox. So as a coach, we have our own, I suppose, toolbox of leadership models, of coaching models, and they're not there to give advice. They're sometimes there just to think through a particular challenge that client is facing, whether that is, I'm really struggling with that relationship, or I'm struggling to work out what's important here, or I'm in this new senior leadership team and I'm feeling small in compared to everybody else. I'm not being accepted. Whatever it is, sometimes a model and thinking through that in your situation can open a door or a window to something that will help you kind of work out how to work through that.
Yeah, no, and that's a lovely description, I think. And I'm an executive coach myself, and I know those conversations, like you say, just when somebody then shares what the issue is and articulates what they think that the solution might be, it is just being able to put it out there and voice it.
Yeah.
And you can see sometimes, can't you, people go, I know what I need to do really, but I just almost needed to sound that out with somebody that's not related, and it is that safe space, but that thinking space, and recognising, as you say, that people do have the answers. So we are resourceful, aren't we? Yes. But it's sometimes tapping in to that and creating that safe space. So really, really nice, I think, description of how that can work in practice. And as you are one of our experienced coaches, and I think just letting people know that a lot of the work that we do to support leadership in that space is to be able to get in touch with us and tap into that executive coaching offer that we have here at Northwest Employers. I think there's lots of experience out there, and I think sometimes people think, oh, coaching, do I need to be fixed? And it's not that, is it? It's not that at all. It is that safe space to be able to work through things that are really going to make a difference. And as you say, be the best leader that you can be to support other people through the transitions.
I think definitely, and I think that there's sometimes an assumption that coaching is something that is remedial, and if I'm not doing a very good job, so therefore, we need coaching. But actually, coaching is an investment in self, investing in being our best selves as leaders and as feeling like human beings while we're doing our work, really. And, the comparison in a way is, imagine a kind of top-level sports person. They all have coaches. They don't think that they are the top of their game and they don't need any support. And I think, coaching is something that can sometimes feel I'm a bit embarrassed about having coaching. But actually, it's the best investment you can make in some ways, because it's your one-to-one time, to bring in anything that's particularly relevant to you as an individual. I think there is so much place for other development programs. I know that Northwest Employers does so much, but also coaching is a really good part of that toolkit, because sometimes we just need that one-to-one conversation.
Yeah.
Someone to hear ourselves in a way, and just have that time, as you say, time out of the day-to-day to bring something that's in there into the light so we can have a look at it and then deal with it.
Kim, that's been lovely talking to you. It's one of those subjects I think we could talk for ages about, but I think what you've helped to articulate is around some of that transition and recognise what we all go through, but we will all go through it at different stages, but it's that journey, isn't it? And actually really insightful around how coaching can support leaders and help leaders then support other people. So thank you so much for giving up your time and chatting to us this morning around coaching and transition. Been really lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sharon. Love to see you.
Thank you. So thanks very much for joining us this morning. We look forward to welcoming you to our future podcasts. If you want to catch up on this or any other sessions, you can go onto our website at nwemployers.org.uk and catch up there. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.